All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're not just reading a history book. We're going to pull on a thread that can unravel a huge part of it. We're looking at an equation hidden in the historical record, an equation so perfect, it seriously makes you question everything you thought you knew about the Holy Roman Empire.
But before we get to the numbers, let me ask you something. Do you think of history as this messy, chaotic thing that just happens? Or could it be something else? Could it, in some cases, be more like a story that someone somewhere carefully wrote down? Just hang on to that thought.
So our investigation takes us right into the heart of medieval Europe. We're talking about the Holy Roman Empire, this huge, complicated political beast that was around for 1,000 years. And you know, because it seems so complex and random on the surface, it's actually the perfect place to go looking for a hidden pattern. Now, we're not trying to boil the whole 1,000-year ocean here. The source material for this explainer zooms in on a very specific slice of time. It all starts in the year 800 with Charlemagne. He was the first emperor to be crowned by the Pope. And it ends in 1530 with Charles V, who, believe it or not, was the very last emperor to get that same honor. You know, if you pick up a textbook on this period, it's just a blur. It's a chaotic mess of names, states, wars, and power struggles. It feels real, right? Unpredictable. But what if that chaos is just a cover story? What if there's a perfect mathematical order hiding right there, underneath it all?
To actually see this pattern, we have to do something kind of weird. We have to completely ignore the story for a minute and just look at the cold, hard data. We're going to pull 3 simple numbers out of the official historical record for this period. That's it. Just 3 numbers.
First up, 31. It's that simple. Between Charlemagne's coronation and Charles V's, there were exactly 31 emperors crowned by the Pope. A simple head count. Number 1 is 31. Our second number is 13. Now, this is where it starts to get a little interesting, because you had 31 emperors, but they didn't have 31 different names. Nope. Over the course of more than 700 years, this entire line of rulers only used 13 unique first names. You see the same ones over and over. Karl, Otto, Heinrich, just 13 of them. And our third and final number, the last piece of the puzzle, is 403. Now, if you take all 31 of those emperors and you add up the total time they spent on the throne, you get 403 years. It sounds like such a specific, almost random number, doesn't it? But as you're about to see, it is anything but random. So you might be asking, where in the world does a number like 403 come from? Well, the source material was incredibly careful about this. They went through ruler by ruler and calculated the length of every single reign. And to make sure the numbers were clean, to avoid any overlaps from, say, co-emperors ruling at the same time, they meticulously adjusted the start dates. And when you do all that math and add it all up, you land precisely on 403. Okay, so let's recap. We have our 3 pieces of data: 31 emperors, 13 names, and a total of 403 years of rule. Taken separately, they're just facts, little bits of historical trivia. But when you put them together, well, that's when something emerges that just shouldn't be possible.
31, 13, 403. 3 numbers, pulled from centuries of supposedly chaotic history. But they aren't unrelated at all. In fact, this is where it gets really, really strange.
31 emperors, multiplied by 13 unique names, equals exactly 403 years of rule. It's a perfect, flawless equation. I mean, just think about that for a second. What are the odds? What are the chances that centuries of messy, unpredictable human history, of life and death, of wars and politics, would just accidentally produce a perfect mathematical formula? Is this the most staggering coincidence of all time? Or are we looking at evidence of something else? Well, the source material we're looking at today doesn't think it's an accident. Not for a second. In fact, it argues this is proof of a deliberate design. The author's conclusion is incredibly blunt. A pattern this clean, quote, can only be explained by the fact that history here follows an ideal concept, a conscious construction at a desk. The implication is just staggering. This history wasn't lived. It was written. It was engineered.
Look, the bottom line of the argument is this. The math is just too perfect. The probability of this equation just popping up by chance over 730 years of chaos is so small it's basically zero. The numbers don't just suggest an artificial order, they practically scream it, forcing us to question the entire official story of this era.
And that, right there, brings us all the way back to the very first question we started with. If a huge chunk of history that we all just accept as fact seems to have a hidden mathematical signature, a kind of code embedded in it, what does that actually mean for how we understand the past?
So in the end, this impossible equation leaves us with a pretty stark choice. Either we believe in a coincidence so wild it's basically a miracle, or we have to seriously consider the possibility that some parts of our official history aren't a record of what happened, but a story that was crafted. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If numbers don't lie, what does that say about the stories we call history?